The desperate plea. The alien city burned under a red sky. Smoke rose from broken towers, and the cries of the weak echoed across the streets. Families huddled together, trying to hide from the soldiers who marched with heavy boots. The invaders had no mercy. They dragged out anyone who was slow to obey. Children screamed, old ones begged, but their voices meant nothing to the armed men who controlled the streets. Among the frightened crowd was a mother with skin pale blue and eyes shining like silver. Her daughter was small, only 5 years old, with thin arms wrapped around her mother's neck. The child shivered with fear, pressing her face against her mother's chest. The mother whispered comfort, but her voice shook. She knew the soldiers were taking children away. No one returned. No one knew where they were taken. Some said they were forced to work until death. Others said worse things. Whatever the truth, the mother's heart could not bear it. The soldiers spotted them. 3 tall figures in black armor stepped closer, their metal weapons glowing faintly in the smoke. One pointed at the little girl and barked a command. The crowd turned away. No one wanted to look. No one wanted to remember. Fear had killed courage long ago. The mother's breath caught in her throat. She tightened her arms around her daughter. "No," she whispered. Her voice broke. "Please, not her." The soldiers ignored her. They advanced, faces hidden behind helmets that reflected the flames around them. The child whimpered. The mother's legs trembled, but she stepped forward. She dropped to her knees on the cracked street, holding the child out of reach, pressing the girl behind her back. "Take me," the mother cried. Her words cracked through the silence of the crowd. "She is only 5. Take me instead." Her voice rose in desperation. "Please, I beg you, take me." For a moment the soldiers paused. The leader tilted his head as if amused. A harsh laugh rang out through his helmet speaker. He motioned for the others to grab the child anyway. The mother fell against the ground, clutching her daughter and sobbing. "She is only a child. Please, I will go. Spare her." The soldiers did not care. One reached forward with a gauntlet, fingers like steel claws. The mother screamed, pressing her body over the child, ready to be beaten, ready to be dragged. Her silver eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking into raw cries. She would give everything, even her life, if only the little one could be spared. The crowd of aliens stood silent. None moved to help. Fear chained them to the ground. They had seen too much blood. They had learned that resistance brought only more pain. Their heads hung low, ashamed but frozen. The mother cried louder, her pleas tearing through the heavy air. Yet still, no one stepped forward. And then, from the edge of the square, a new voice cut through the smoke. Calm, steady, and sharp. "That is enough." Heads turned. The soldiers froze for a second. Out from the shadows walked a figure that was not like the others. His skin was human. His build was broad, his shoulders squared. He wore no armor like theirs, only a worn jacket burned at the edges. His eyes held no fear. His steps echoed like thunder in the silent street. The alien mother raised her head, blinking through tears. She saw him clearly, a human, the kind her people barely knew. Few humans lived in this part of the galaxy. They were strange, distant, but stories whispered that they carried a will like fire. Now, one stood before her. The soldiers shifted uneasily. One barked an order, telling the human to step away. The man did not stop. He walked closer until he stood between the mother and the armored invaders. His shadow fell across her and the child. His voice was quiet, but it cut deeper than any blade. "You will not touch them." The soldiers laughed, their metallic voices full of mockery. They raised their weapons, aiming at him. They thought him a fool, another victim ready to be crushed. But his eyes did not waver. His jaw tightened. His body stood like a wall, unshakable. The mother gasped. She could not believe what she was seeing. No one, not even her own people, had dared to stand against the soldiers, and yet this lone human had walked into danger without hesitation. Her tears fell harder, but now they were mixed with something else. Hope. The crowd stirred. Whispers spread. A human was challenging the invaders. Some felt fear for him. Others felt a spark in their chest, a memory of courage they thought lost. The soldiers grew restless, unsure of why this man did not kneel, why he did not beg, why he did not run. The little girl peeked from behind her mother's arms, her small eyes locked on the human's tall figure. She did not fully understand, but she felt safer. His presence was like a shield. Her trembling slowed. The standoff thickened. Smoke curled in the air, hiding the stars above. The soldiers tightened their grips, ready to strike. The human took one more step forward, his voice steady. "You will not harm the child." His words spread like fire through the crowd. The silence broke. Hearts began to pound with something they had forgotten long ago. The air filled with tension, fear, and a rising spark of defiance. The desperate mother held her daughter close, eyes fixed on the human. In the middle of despair, he had become a wall between them and death, and in that moment, the story of a human who would not bend was about to begin. The human's defiance. The air was heavy with silence. Smoke drifted between the buildings, and the broken city seemed to hold its breath. 3 armored soldiers stood, facing the human. Their black helmets reflected the glow of fire, hiding their expressions. But their voices carried nothing but cruelty. "Step aside," the leader growled, his voice echoing through his speaker. "This is not your fight." The human did not move. He stood tall, his shoulders square, his boots planted firmly on the cracked stone. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. Behind him, the alien mother clutched her child close. She wanted to scream at him to run, to save himself, but no words left her mouth. Something in his presence froze her tongue. The leader motioned to his soldiers. "Take the child, kill the fool if he resists." The human's lips curled into a faint smile, not of amusement but of challenge. His voice was steady, almost cold. "You will not touch her." The soldiers laughed. Their laughter was hollow, mechanical, twisted through their helmets. To them, he was nothing more than a reckless outsider, one man without weapons, standing against trained killers. But still, he did not move. He became a wall of flesh and bone, more unshakable than the steel towers burning around them. The crowd watched, their eyes wide. None had dared to face the soldiers before. Generations of fear had silenced them, chained them. But now a single human broke that silence, and their hearts trembled with something they had long forgotten. Courage. The leader raised his weapon. Its tip glowed with deadly light. "You think you can stop us? You are only human." The man's gaze never wavered. "That is enough." The soldiers advanced. The sound of their boots echoed like drums of war. The alien mother pulled her daughter tighter, fear racing through her body. She wanted to shield her child from what was coming, but her eyes would not turn away. One soldier stepped forward, swinging his weapon at the human's chest. The human moved. It was not hesitation, it was not panic. It was sudden and sharp, faster than the crowd could follow. His hand caught the soldier's arm, twisting it with brutal force. A metallic crack filled the air, followed by a cry of pain. The soldier dropped to the ground. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The mother's silver eyes widened. The child clung to her tighter, but there was wonder in her small gaze. The other 2 soldiers reacted instantly. One charged from the side, blade flashing in the firelight. The human stepped into the attack, his movements controlled, precise. He slammed his elbow into the soldier's chest plate. The sound of cracking armor rang out, and the soldier staggered back. The leader roared in anger and fired his weapon. A beam of searing light shot toward the human. At the last second, the man dropped low, the beam slicing through the wall behind him. Dust and stone exploded into the air. The crowd screamed, ducking for cover. The mother threw herself over her daughter, but the human was already moving again. He surged forward, closing the distance between himself and the leader. His hand struck like iron against the weapon, knocking it away. The two clashed, fists against armor, rage against calm determination. The leader was stronger, his armor giving him power, but the human fought with something deeper. Every strike was fueled not by survival alone, but by defiance, by an unbreakable will that no machine could match. He fought not for himself, but for a child he did not know, for a mother whose cries had torn through the silence. The mother's heart raced. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Each movement of the human defied logic. He fought with no fear. He fought like a man who had decided that death itself was no reason to step aside. The leader staggered under the blows. He tried to push back, but the human's fists struck with crushing rhythm. One final strike sent the armored soldier crashing to the ground. Dust rose around him as he hit the stone. The human stood tall above the fallen leader, chest heaving, sweat and dust on his skin. The remaining soldier, the one whose chest plate was cracked, stared in silence. His hands trembled around his weapon. The human's voice broke through the stillness, low and steady. "Leave, or you will fall like the rest." The soldier hesitated. His weapon shook. His gaze shifted to the fallen leader, then to the silent crowd, and finally to the human's unyielding figure. Fear, real fear, filled him. He turned and fled into the smoke, his boots clattering against the broken street. The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. Never before had they seen the invaders pushed back. Never before had they seen anyone face them and live. The alien mother wept, clutching her daughter, but this time her tears carried more than fear. They carried relief. They carried hope. The child peeked again, her small eyes shining. She whispered softly, a word only her mother could hear. "Hero." The human turned his head slightly, looking down at them. His face softened, just for a moment, as his gaze fell upon the trembling child. He gave a small nod, almost like a promise, before lifting his eyes back to the crowd. The square was silent, all eyes fixed on him. He had defied the soldiers. He had broken the chains of fear. But deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. More would come. Stronger enemies would arrive, and when they did, he would stand again, because he was human, and humans did not bow. The first strike. The crowd stood frozen, unable to believe what had just happened. 3 soldiers had been stopped. By one man. The smoke still swirled, the fire still burned, but for the first time, the invaders had been pushed back. Whispers spread quickly through the frightened people. A human had stood against them. A human had fought when no one else dared. But silence never lasted long in war. From the far side of the square, the sound of heavy boots thundered through the dust. More soldiers appeared, their dark armor gleaming with cold light. They moved in formation, 10 of them, their weapons raised. Behind them came an officer, taller, broader, with armor engraved in crimson markings. His helmet bore jagged edges, like the crown of a predator. His presence alone made the crowd shrink back. The alien mother gasped and pulled her daughter close. Fear gripped her heart again. The human had won once, but against so many? Could he survive? The officer's voice boomed through the speaker in his mask. "One human dares to stand against the Empire?" He laughed, a cruel sound. "You will be crushed, and your defiance will die with you." The human's jaw tightened, but he did not step back. His eyes scanned the soldiers who fanned out before him, their weapons humming with energy. His stance shifted slightly, his hands curling into fists. Ready. The officer raised his hand, and the soldiers aimed as one. A tense silence filled the square. The crowd held its breath. The alien mother shut her eyes, whispering desperate prayers. The child clung to her, trembling, and then the first strike came. A bolt of energy cut through the air, fired from one of the soldiers' rifles. The human twisted aside, the beam scorching the stone where he had stood. Dust exploded upward, blinding those nearby, but the human was already moving. He charged forward with speed that defied reason, closing the distance before the soldier could fire again. His fist slammed into the weapon, shattering it in sparks, and then into the soldier's helmet. The armored figure dropped lifeless to the ground. The square erupted into chaos. The other soldiers opened fire, beams of light crisscrossing through the smoke. The crowd screamed and scattered for cover. The mother threw herself over her child, shielding her small body. Explosions rocked the square as walls cracked and stones split. But through the storm of fire, the human kept moving. He darted between blasts, every step precise, every strike calculated. His fists and feet struck like thunder, and each enemy he touched fell. He fought without fear, without hesitation. His will alone was a weapon sharper than any blade. The officer roared in anger. "Kill him!" Two soldiers rushed from the side, blades drawn. The human caught the first by the wrist, twisting until the blade dropped. With the same motion, he flung the soldier into the second. Both crashed into a wall, their armor sparking as they collapsed. Another beam shot past his head, close enough to scorch his hair. He spun, ripped the weapon from the soldier's hands, and fired back. The blast struck true, sending the armored figure flying. The mother dared to look up, and what she saw left her breathless. The human was surrounded by fire and smoke, his figure outlined in light, his eyes locked on his enemies. Each move was more than survival. It was defiance carved into motion. He was one man against an army, yet he fought as if the outcome had already been decided. The crowd began to stir. They whispered, then shouted, their voices growing louder. "He fights. For us!" one cried. "The human stands!" another screamed. Hope, fragile but fierce, spread like fire through the broken people. The officer saw it too. His crimson eyes behind the helmet narrowed. He raised his weapon, a massive blade crackling with energy. He stepped forward, his voice shaking the ground. "Enough! You face me now, human!" The human turned slowly to meet him. His breathing was heavy, his body marked with burns and blood, but his stance did not falter. He nodded once, as if accepting a challenge that could not be refused. The officer charged, his blade sweeping down with monstrous strength. The human caught the strike with both arms, the ground cracking beneath his feet from the force. Sparks showered the square as the two locked in a deadly clash. The crowd gasped. The mother pressed her daughter's face against her chest, unable to watch yet unable to look away. The officer pushed, his strength like a storm, but the human pushed back. Slowly his legs straightened, his arms holding steady against the glowing blade. His voice rang out, not loud but strong enough to cut through the chaos. "You will not take her." The officer roared and struck again, each swing faster, heavier. The human dodged, blocked, countered. His fists struck the officer's armor, each blow leaving cracks. The ground shook with every clash, the air thick with smoke and energy. The battle seemed endless, a storm of power and defiance. But then, with a final roar, the human seized the officer's blade arm, twisted it, and drove his fist into the helmet. The mask shattered, revealing the alien's twisted face beneath. The officer fell to his knees, stunned, beaten. The square fell silent. Smoke drifted. The crowd stared in disbelief. One man, one human, had stood against the Empire's soldiers and brought down their champion. The mother wept silently, clutching her daughter. The child's wide eyes shone with awe. She whispered the word again, louder this time. "Hero!" The human stood above the fallen officer, chest heaving, his fists clenched. He looked at the crowd, then at the trembling mother and child. His voice was quiet but powerful, a promise etched into the air. This fight is not over, but as long as I stand, you are not alone. And with those words, the fire of defiance spread across the square. The turning point. The square was filled with smoke and silence. The officer lay broken on the ground, his crimson-marked helmet shattered, his breath ragged. Around him, the fallen soldiers groaned in the dust, their weapons scattered like dead serpents. And in the middle of it all stood the human, chest rising and falling, fists still clenched, eyes burning with fire. The crowd watched him as if he were not flesh and blood but something greater. For the first time in years, they saw the invaders defeated. For the first time, they felt the spark of hope. But deep inside, fear still lingered. They knew the Empire never accepted defeat. This was only the beginning. The alien mother held, her daughter close, her heart torn between relief and dread. She wanted to thank the man who had saved them, but her voice would not come. Her eyes met his for a brief moment. In his gaze, she saw no pride, only readiness. He knew more was coming, and he was right. The ground trembled. The crowd gasped. From the far end of the ruined street came the low growl of engines. Metal claws scraped against stone. A dark shape emerged through the smoke. It was not soldiers this time. It was a machine, towering like a walking fortress, its body black. Steel, its eyes burning with red light. Mounted cannons glowed along its arms, and its steps cracked the earth. The people screamed. Some fled, others froze in terror. The alien mother shielded her daughter, trembling as the monstrous war machine advanced. It was a symbol of the Empire's strength, a weapon designed to crush rebellion before it could breathe. The officer, broken but still conscious, laughed bitterly through bloodied lips. "Now you die, human. No flesh can stand against the will of the Empire." The human's face hardened, his muscles ached, his body carried wounds, but he did not step back. He placed himself between the machine and the mother who clutched her child. He raised his voice, steady and defiant. "I said she will not be touched." The machine's cannons lit up, humming with deadly power. The air vibrated with energy. The people cowered. The mother shut her eyes, whispering broken prayers. The child buried her face against her mother's chest, and then the first cannon fired. The blast struck the stone where the human had stood, exploding into fire and dust. The crowd screamed, but the smoke cleared, and he was still standing. He had moved at the last moment, his body a blur, rolling across the broken ground. His clothes were scorched, his skin burned, but his eyes did not waver. He charged. The crowd gasped. A single man ran headlong at a giant machine, his figure small against its massive legs. The war machine fired again. Explosions ripped across the square, walls shattered, flames roared, but the human kept moving. His feet pounded the ground, his breath steady, his will unbroken. He leapt. His hands caught the machine's armored leg. With furious strength, he climbed, his fists pounding against steel, each strike leaving dents where none should be possible. Sparks burst, gears screamed, and the giant staggered under his assault. The officer shouted, struggling to rise, "Crush him!" The machine's arms swung, smashing into a building, tearing stone apart, but the human clung on. His body bled. His muscles burned, yet he climbed higher. With a roar, he drove his fist deep into a joint between plates, tearing wires free. The machine jolted, its cannons flickering. The crowd erupted in shouts, voices rising louder. "The human fights! The human stands!" Hope surged like fire through their veins. For the first time, they screamed not in fear, but in defiance. The mother looked up, tears streaming down her face. She saw him hanging on to the impossible, fighting for her child, fighting for all of them. Her daughter peeked from her arms, whispering again, "Hero." The machine reeled, trying to shake him off. Its cannons fired wildly into the sky, tearing holes in the clouds. The human climbed to its chest, his fists striking again and again. Metal split under his fury. Sparks rained down like stars. Finally, he reached the core, a glowing sphere, pulsed within, the heart of the beast. With one final roar, he drove his fist into the core. Light burst outward in a blinding wave. The machine screamed, its body convulsing, and then it collapsed. The ground shook as the steel giant fell, crashing into the square. Dust exploded into the air, fire dying with a hiss. Silence followed. The smoke drifted. The machine was still, and above its broken body stood the human, bruised, burned, bloodied, but alive. His chest heaved with every breath, his fists stained with ash and oil. The crowd erupted into cheers. They cried out his name, though they did not know it. They shouted with voices filled with tears and fury. Hope had become fire, unstoppable, blazing through their hearts. The officer crawled backward, eyes wide with fear. He could not believe what he had seen. Impossible. One human cannot. His words broke into silence. The human stepped down from the machine, his figure cutting through the smoke. His voice carried across the square, calm and steady. "They want you to believe you are powerless. They want you to kneel. But you are not slaves. You are not broken. Stand." The people trembled. Some wept openly. They looked at each other, then back at the human. For the first time in years, they felt strength return to their bones. The mother stood slowly, holding her child. Her silver eyes glistened. She whispered through her tears, "He is not only fighting for us, he is showing us how to fight." And in that moment, the turning point had come. Fear began to die, and courage was born again. The human's legacy, the square was filled with smoke and fire, but the air was no longer heavy with silence. It pulsed with something new, something long buried, defiance. The people who once cowered now raised their heads. Their eyes followed the lone figure who stood on the wreck of the machine, his body battered but unbroken. The human looked down at the crowd. His breaths were slow, deep, controlled, but every muscle burned. Blood stained his clothes, his skin was torn, yet his stance did not falter. He was not only standing for himself, he was standing for them. The officer, half broken on the ground, dragged himself back with trembling arms. His crimson-marked helmet hung shattered from his head, his face twisted with fury and disbelief. "You think this changes anything? The Empire will return with armies. They will burn this city to ash. And you will die first, human." The human's eyes narrowed, but his voice carried calm strength. "Maybe they will come. Maybe they will send more. But today, you failed. Today, the world saw that you can be stopped." His words struck deeper than any weapon. The officer's face paled. He spat blood, but no answer came. His fear was louder than his threats. The people stirred. Their whispers grew into shouts. "He fights for us. The Empire can bleed. We are not broken." The mother stepped forward, still, clutching her daughter. Her silver eyes glistened with tears. She bowed her head, her voice breaking but clear. "You saved her. You saved us all." The child peeked from her arms, her small voice rising above the noise. "Hero." The human's gaze softened for the briefest moment. He knelt before them, not as a conqueror, not as a savior demanding praise, but as one who had chosen to stand. He rested a hand lightly on the child's shoulder. "Live. Grow strong. Remember this day." The mother wept, unable to speak. Her tears fell onto her daughter's hair. The crowd looked on, their hearts pounding with emotion. They saw not only a protector, but a living reminder of what courage meant. But the silence was broken again. A deep horn echoed through the night sky. Shadows moved above the burning rooftops. Warships of the Empire descended from the clouds, their engines roaring like thunder. The people gasped. The officers' lips twisted into a broken smile. "It is over. They are here. None of you will survive." The mother clutched her daughter tightly. The crowd's hope flickered. Fear tried to crawl back into their bones. But the human rose slowly to his feet. His gaze lifted to the sky, unflinching, unwavering. He turned to the people. His voice was low, steady, and fierce. "If they come, then we fight. Not just me, all of us. You have forgotten what it means to stand. Remember it now." The crowd trembled. His words lit a fire in their hearts. They looked at one another, and something long dead awoke. The chains of fear cracked. The silence of submission shattered. The warships hovered closer, their cannons charging. The officer laughed weakly, believing it was the end. But the people did not run this time. They picked up fallen weapons from the broken soldiers. They gripped stones, iron rods, anything they could find. Their voices rose together, a storm of defiance. "For the child," one shouted. "For our people," cried another. "For freedom," the voices roared. The human raised his hand, signaling for silence. His eyes glowed with determination. "Today is not the day you bow. Today is the day you rise." The crowd erupted into thunderous cries. The Empire's warships loomed above, ready to strike, but the people no longer waited in fear. They stood shoulder to shoulder, united not by weapons but by courage. The Empire had never faced such a sight. Slaves refusing to kneel, civilians ready to fight, all inspired by one lone figure who had dared to stand first. The horn of the warships blared again, but now it carried no dread. It was a challenge. The human turned back toward the mother and child. He gave them a single nod, a promise without words. Then he faced the skies once more, his fists clenched, his body steady, despite the wounds. He was ready. And in that moment, the people knew. Even if death came, their story had already changed. Because one human had stood against the Empire. One human had shown them that mercy was stronger than cruelty, that courage was stronger than fear, that sacrifice was stronger than power, and that memory would live forever. Long after the fires burned out and the smoke cleared, long after the battles yet to come, the story would be told across stars and centuries. The day when an alien mother begged for her child and a human stepped forward. The day when hope returned. The day when a human's legacy began.